Hey guys, today with the theme. Just be yourself. You hear it on every street corner these days. How often is the premise or message of any media you have access to nowadays? Don't pretend, if you just be yourself then you can get anything you want. And the whole thing starts, of course, with a truth that we would all agree with so fundamentally: don't pretend. That's right, that would be nonsense. After all, by doing so you would usually be living out someone else's values. If you don't stand behind it or feel forced into a position, by whatever means, then you develop and develop without ifs and buts and end up in a position that makes you wonder how the hell you could have ended up there. Control and one's own will are the key words here. But then it goes on, and after you have basically agreed to the fact with the do not pretend, it is easier to simply nod off the rest or to see a coherent message in the two messages that are hidden in it. So, don't pretend and just be yourself. I absolutely don't see it as interrelated but building on each other. And once you have the basis of not pretending, which by the way may also be doubted in certain situations, because you usually have to try yourself first and in the beginning new behavior is also pretending, then you can develop in different directions. Be yourself for me just means stand still. And stagnation in today's society is exactly what makes you an unattractive, needy, unhappy nice guy. It doesn't help you or those around you in any way. What you so superficially associate with this statement, however, is unfortunately that it is your own will that counts and you should simply follow your gut feeling and values to be able to achieve what you want and be happy with it. Unfortunately, this is not how the world works, and if you look under the surface of this oh so beautiful concocted truth, you will see that it would be necessary to understand yourself completely and to have complete control over your feelings, inclinations, and even experiences. And all the way back to the beginning of one's life, since our upbringing and development and in some ways our programming started back then and have a huge impact on who we are today and where we set our own boundaries. In addition, we usually just strive to make ourselves as comfortable and energy efficient as possible, and working on ourselves rarely plays into that. So, for example, did you work for decades in the 60s, come home, smack your wife because dinner wasn't on the table yet and spend the rest of the evening in front of the TV, but you were happy? Hey great, you were who you are. The same today, in the morning to work in the open plan office until 4:30, home, cook, yeah shit, you sit, and when you sit you can't do anything useful anymore. But you are who you are. It doesn't matter if you put on 3 to 4 kilos every year for the last 10 years and then have to continue this daily routine for another 30 years until you retire. One changes from itself nothing. That's how we humans are made. Only when the pressure of suffering becomes great enough do we realize that we should have changed something ages ago, so that we are not who we are now, but who we would like to be right now. And the two aspects come together in my eyes. First of all, nobody changes when everything is comfortable and going well for them. Most of the time you don't even have the perception if it will end up in a shambles, e.g. relationships, when a partner lets himself go or the man steps on the spot. And secondly, we only become aware of how stupid the statement, just be yourself, really is, when you have come to a point that requires you to be more than you have really achieved through the statement the last years. You never realize your full potential with this phrase. If you approach yourself with a different mindset, permanently expand your comfort zone and achieve set goals, then it is even possible to expand the upper limit of the potential that you or others initially saw in you. We generally don't have an upper limit, but if we set one for ourselves and then permanently rummage around on 20%, because we got into the habit that the work was so exhausting and we need 6 hours time for rest in the evening before going to bed, during which we do nothing but eat and fart into the couch, you don't have the pressure, I get it. But you could be so much happier in the long run than you are right now. You have the capacity for it, but you tell yourselves you're fine the way you are. Somewhere in the world there are people with more suffering than you have. Maybe family men who have 2 jobs to feed their family, who build something at the same time and get up at 5 instead of 7:15 to get to the training before. You don't need this pressure, and you don't need to neglect your sleep. You have so many possibilities, and if you just change a little bit and don't see yourself as an accomplished masterpiece, but as someone who can go further and further, then you are already doing a lot right. This methodology of directly imagining the optimum that you could be and immediately changing your entire daily routine, your entire diet, and telling everyone out there about your new goals, the strongest-willed people in the world wouldn't be able to stand that. That's why working on yourself is such a long-term thing. It's a project that virtually never ends. When you reach a goal, it gives you the drive to look for a new one, because it felt so good to reach it. Nobody changes from one day to the next. But changes or no changes, improves you in the moment in which your conditions for it are given. For example, if you have been through a hard breakup, then you have the pressure to work on yourself as never before, but you first have to build up your self-worth again. Are you still in a relationship and it is going on, or single but you are quite satisfied with yourself? Then you meet other requirements, maybe you make progress a little slower but prevent you from falling so low in the end. And this self-improvement affects all aspects of your life. Your social environment, hobbies, sports, and your health and your work. It's always going somewhere more or less if you put your mind to it, and you're personally growing from it, too. Presses you besides knowledge purely. Both to the just enumerated aspects of your life, as well as those, which you still so interessieren and later perhaps times can bring further. Now I've gone into the personality development again. Did I get the message across completely? That you actually have no idea who you are or who you want to be, or maybe you dream of it but are not willing to do enough for it, and such a crap talk rather holds you back. Is like very many other quotes. If you start from your current point of view, they can do different things. And especially with quotes that are supposed to motivate, it's a pity if you start from a different point of view than the one you're really standing at in reality. As an example, I had a quote from Contra K in a comment the other day: if you've never lost, you've never lived. Because you first have to be on the ground to stand firmly on it. So now that was something my ex believed in and motivated herself with that and others. What did she do after the breakup? Instead of pulling out of it, that one gets a firmer stand by defeats and thereby rather knows what is necessary to be able to achieve more in a new relationship, she ran without getting rid of her own problems on good luck into the next relationship. You can talk yourself into anything, if you only get the right words and the confirmation from outside. Then you don't have to think about it or spend energy to change something. Because you are good the way you are. And I'm telling you this because it's been the best example I've run across lately, and not because my ex is now generally such a lousy example of everything or does everything possible wrong and I want to judge it. You must always remember that I also did the same shit for 29.5 years, believed and ran after him. But what can happen in half a year, if you change your attitude a little bit, is simply not to be put into words. Please just experience it yourself, even if it is not 100% necessary. And if you see only the sentence "be yourself" in the future in a different light. Take care, and until the next video.